It's Edmonton's podcast on the Canada's Podcast Network.
Today's guest is Marnie Ashcroft, founder and CEO of Glo Juicery. Thanks for joining us today, Marnie.
Thank you so much, Mario.
Tell me a little bit about Glo Juicery, what it is and what you do.
Okay, so Glo Juicery is a cold-pressed juice company. So we started 6 years ago with a vision to bring access to raw, unpasteurized, cold-pressed juices, which at that time didn't exist in the industry. There were shelf juices, as we like to call them, that you would find in a grocery store. And we wanted to bring something that allowed people that were experiencing critical care situations, inflammatory diseases, but also for athletes that just wanted access to pure raw juice.
How did you get involved in this?
I feel as though I was somewhat compelled to this cause to support it because there was just a lot of information coming my way. A few different sort of events occurred in my life. One of them being a friend of mine was diagnosed with cancer, and her husband needed to quit his job and make juice for her. And I thought it just seemed to really compromise the family in a way that seemed a bit unfair. And so I started to do some research on what this was, on why a doctor would prescribe juice therapy and how this was missing in, the Canadian landscape. I also am a mom of 2 kids, and we would be on the go, and I'd be, looking at the different drive-through options available and thinking, wouldn't it be incredible if there was a safe place that you could go where you could just have access to plant-based foods? And that as you walk in that door, that someone cares about what you're eating, that nothing's been fried, that everything has been carefully sourced, and that it would be convenient and you could grab and go that option. Because at the time there were a few restaurants and across Canada, vegan restaurants were popping up, but there was nothing that made it look as convenient as what I had in mind. Mm-hmm. So all of those ideas kind of started to percolate. I started doing some research in the US, and at the time there were already like 4,000 juiceries in the United States. So that's when the little hairs on your arm stand up and you think, okay, this is something, it's been validated in other parts of North America. It's time for me to bring that here.
What are you most excited about the business right now?
I think right now it's interesting to watch the evolution because, when I started, we had a real education push around getting people to understand the value of our product. So, a shelf juice, a grocery store product costs $2.50. That might be the most you'd want to spend on a juice product. And we were bringing to market a product that I was going to charge at that time $8, $9 for. And so we had that kind of bit of a conversation to have consistently with clients to get them to understand the value. But that conversation has been had, and the evolution in our industry has really progressed. So now we get to have conversations that push the envelope a little further. Mm-hmm. We're talking more about the integration of superfoods. We're talking about food as medicine. There's natural health practitioners and nutritionists that are starting to really talk about plant-based foods and whole foods and all of that too. So it's kind of exciting because we get to keep evolving and really bringing new ideas to the table in a different way.
What's your vision for the company going forward into the future?
So what I've always envisioned for Glo is not that we are a company that makes food products, but that we're an education company that also makes food products. So we really want to move that education piece and become more of a lifestyle brand that connects people to all different resources that can help them on their journey. I don't know exactly what that looks like. I'm really in a kind of a creative phase, and I think that's sort of the natural pace of our business. Is in the summer we do a bit more reflection and research. So we're kind of in that mode right now, a little bit of R&D, trying to figure out what we're going to bring. We also have locations across the country. So I did start franchising within the first few years of opening the business. So we have locations from Vancouver Island to Prince Edward Island that all have different demands and different communities that they're servicing. So, we take in that collective Canadian interest and we put that into our product development.
Let's take a look at the city that you live in and based your business in. What are the benefits of doing business in Edmonton?
Edmonton, I've always been very, very happy about starting a business in Edmonton. I'm not from Edmonton originally. I was born in British Columbia, and I grew up in Calgary in my teen years and went to high school and university in Calgary. So when I moved to Edmonton in my mid-20s, it was sort of a fresh view on a city that I actually have really come to love. It almost has felt like a safe place to start a business. So I feel like people here welcome you with kindness. We're very happy to support and create community, opportunities around one another. There's a lot of collaboration in this city. A lot of really wonderful ideas that are started. I don't know. It would be interesting to kind of know what percentage of our business community is entrepreneurs in Edmonton versus Calgary versus Toronto. I've always kind of felt like Edmonton had a lot of people that were being brave and taking risks and starting businesses. And I think that's why we're so supportive of one another is there's a lot of like-mindedness there.
What about challenges of doing business in Edmonton these days?
I would say the challenges that I experience tend to be more around the way that, so for example, there's some hard costs associated with the business. And some of those hard costs are lease rates and property taxes and all those other, infrastructure related issues that you can experience. And as a small business, one of the ways we've overcome that is by banding together with other small businesses to, there's a lot of space sharing ideas here. You'll notice in Edmonton, a lot of collectives getting together and trying to share those hard costs. I think it would be interesting to see. One of the things I've often thought about is what would it look like if we started to kind of lobby together and actually push forward and ask for policy change to make it easier for small businesses to get a foothold. It's really, we really don't have a lot of say, and the landlords do. And that's a very old institution that is difficult to change. So that's just one of the sort of experiences I've had recently is around those harder costs.
What do you know today that you wish you knew when you first started the business?
Like nearly every single thing that I've learned in the last 6 years, I would say it's very difficult to pinpoint one item. For sure, I've learned how to manage risk better in my business. And I've learned how to, and I want to say this in as thoughtful a way as possible, but you have to make sure that you're not making decisions with your ego and that you're making decisions with good guidance and information. And I think initially I let my ego and not even ego in a bad way, but just like the part of you that gets really excited about how things are going to look or how things are going to appear to others rather than how they actually feel for you. To make decisions in that way is dangerous and ultimately doesn't lead to fabulous success. So I often look at opportunities and think, is this a decision that I'm making because it makes sense for the business? Or is it a decision that I'm making just because I think it's going to look really good on Instagram? It's just really important. I think that's a level of maturity that I've found within the business at this point.
As an entrepreneur over the years, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I think it comes back to that same knowledge of following your heart and trusting your instinct in the business. I think the advice that I tend to receive, when I don't participate in a lot of networking type groups, I really connect one-on-one with a lot of local entrepreneurs that I look to and that I think have a clear understanding of how to grow businesses locally here and across Canada. And one of the things we often speak about is just trusting ourselves and trusting our instinct, right? Ultimately, you can take in a lot of information and a lot of guidance, but if it doesn't resonate within you and if it doesn't feel like the right choice for what you've created, ultimately, I don't think it'll work out.
Okay, I'm going to switch gears here and ask you some more personal type questions. Everybody has a bucket list these days. What's on top of yours?
Coming up on my bucket list is kind of a unique thing that I've been contemplating for about 2 or 3 years now. And actually, I'm evaluating going to Peru for an ayahuasca retreat. So I don't know if you know anything about ayahuasca, but it's a bit and it's hard to kind of explain it, but it's a bit of a shaman sort of leads you through a process of self-discovery through a little bit of use of some accepted psychedelics. And the idea is to tap into parts of your subconscious that you might not be aware of. So it's kind of a step beyond meditation. And for me, that's a huge, scary moment of self-discovery. But it's something that I feel I need to try out. So that's what's next.
Is that at Machu Picchu?
Yeah, it is in Peru, but it's not at Machu Picchu. There's different retreats, but this one that we're specifically looking at is in the mountains.
If you weren't doing what you do now for work, what kind of career or profession do you think you'd have?
So the path that I was on before I decided to start Glo was specific to project management and custom home building. And I love that industry. I love design, and I love any of that work to do with custom home building, renovations, all of that. So probably I would have found myself in that field to some extent. I have a passion for business development. I also could have possibly just ended up in a pure sort of sales role within an organization. So yeah, I'm not sure. It's funny. I often reflect on that, like what ifs, but you can't spend too much time there.
No, you certainly can't. Do you spend much time reading books? And if so, what are you reading right now?
Yeah, I do read books. I also, I'm a busy gal, and to sit down and read to me actually is like a trick. I was able to get some books in while I was on vacation recently, but my favorite is to listen to podcasts or to audiobooks, which is like, you just get such a download of information while driving between meetings, or, you can kind of be listening while multitasking. That's my favorite. I'm really into Rachel Hollis right now. I find her to be quite inspiring. And so that's one of the books that I'm reading currently.
Okay, super. If there's one word that you would use to describe yourself, what would it be and why?
I think I'll spin the word stubborn and I'll say tenacious. I would say that I'm tenacious.
Okay, super. And when you look outside of Edmonton, is there a special and favorite place that you'd like to visit?
So my partner, his family's, he's from Italy. And so we spend quite a bit of time visiting there, at least once a year for a few weeks. So Italy's kind of got a really special place in my heart. But I was born and raised in BC, and I love the mountains. Especially this time of year, I'm constantly thinking about the next time we can get to the lake and the mountains in BC.
Mm-hmm. We are creatures of habit. I'm just wondering if you have a daily routine or ritual that you follow every day.
Yeah, I do. I like to wake up fairly consistently around the same time. I'm not a super early riser, but I'm usually, kind of starting my day about 6:30 a.m. And I go through a process of a little bit of meditation in the morning and then coffee. And the thing about me, and the reason why being an entrepreneur has worked really well, is I like to work out first thing. So before I start my day, to kind of get my head straight, I go for a workout every morning. And then my day kind of unfolds as the business needs me. So sometimes it's meetings, sometimes it's being with my team in the juicery. Sometimes it's back-to-back conference calls.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of let the day unfold, and I create structure, but I also try to let it be organic and not too serious.
I'm going to present a scenario to you, a little different one, so bear with me for a second. So imagine a small tropical island, beautiful island in the middle of the ocean, but it only has one phone booth and no internet. We're going to drop you off there with no technology at all, by yourself. At any time, you can use the phone booth on the island to call the boat to come pick you up. Now, how long would it take before you made that phone call? And what do you think you'd do there, and how would you spend your time?
It's a very good question. I would like to pretend that I could hang in there for, let's say, a week and try to get some rest. But unfortunately, I think I'm a little too plugged in, and maybe this would change over time. But right now I would be thinking, okay, what are the kids doing? Is the business okay? Is someone, mowing the lawn, feeding the dog, like all the things, all the obligations of your life. So I'm pretty sure that I could last maybe 48 hours. And then I would be making that call. And in those 48 hours, I would tell myself, you are just going to relax, get some sunshine, that kind of thing. I don't know. It's not the stage of my life right now where I feel like I can be alone on an island, but I know it'll happen one day.
Tough for entrepreneurs to do that, I think.
I think so. And I think the nature of our personalities is that we like being plugged in. It's a double-edged sword, but it's one that we wield every day.
Is there anything you would like to add, Marnie, before you leave us today?
No, I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. I think it's nice that you're bringing to light the challenges and the personalities behind running businesses. That's a really important resource for us to listen to one another. And I appreciate the time to talk with you.
Well, thanks, Marnie, for being our guest on Edmonton's podcast.